Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Before we go on to cover the action from the Boardwalk, New Jersey yesterday, I want to talk about the Joyce should retire thing. If I'm going to tell you retire from anything, boxing, mountain climbing, working on the scaffolds is too dangerous, you're getting too old, you're too old to do a certain genre of music, you should stop. In my opinion, I do not approach another grown man telling him he needs to retire from what's putting food on his table unless I have options for him to stop. Joe, you're taking too many punches. I have such and such a job waiting for you now if you retire, and it will pay you such and such a year. That's fair. Now, he doesn't have to take you up on that offer, but that's fair. You've given a man an alternative. But any man telling another man to give up his career, which in his last fight, one of the scorecards was 95-96. 93-94 was another. And the other one, most people would agree, was way out there, too wide in Hrgovic's favor. Right? Joe wasn't knocked down. He wasn't staggering around the ring or anything like that. And this was against the number 8, the Ring Magazine number 8 heavyweight contender. Joe collected a purse which most fighters on the planet will never get. And I'm not pocket watching, I'm not even digging up the purse. But that's what kind of purse he would have got. Because he's headlining on a Queensberry card as a heavyweight. And you're telling him to walk away. And no disrespect to these guys, but would Adi Oladipo or Gareth Davis give up some of their lucrative gigs so Joe could retire? Probably not. Joyce more than likely will not get punditry or commentary work because of the reputation that he's about to get punch drunk and his lack of catchy anecdotes and the stop and start nature of his buffering speech. He's unlikely to get punditry or commentary work. This is what Joe knows to do. But yet, he's being told by so many people in the media and boxing fans, walk away from the career where you got a silver medal that some would argue should have been gold, where you became the Ring Magazine and sanctioning body #1 contender and was one of the most talked about entities in the sport, period. The juggernaut. Well, that's the challenge to Joyce. Can he walk away from the sport? And look, that is a serious question. Can he walk away from the sport? Does he know when to walk away from the sport? But it don't apply to Joe alone. It applies to everybody who puts on a pair of boxing gloves. Well, the challenge to you is to give him an alternative.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
welterweight prospect OMARI Jones moves to 2-0, 2 inside the distance, stopping William Jackson in 1 round. In OMARI's pro debut, he was using them feints to set up his attacks. When he was using the feint and his opponent bit on the feint, OMARI could have went for the counter right there and then, but he was just using the feint almost like he was practicing, trying it out. He was so comfortable doing it. And then eventually he got his man out of there. And today, they mentioned Sergio Mora, the 2 foot feints he did on William Jackson. The first one had William totally discombobulated. He nearly fell over from the feint alone. The second one, assisted by some subtle movement to his left, and then drilling that right hand into his opponent's torso, resulted in a knockout. And obviously, as the levels increase, his opponents will have a little bit of a read on OMARI Jones, but he's very talented. First round knockout, and they need to keep him busy, and they need to kind of like gauge as best they can that they don't push him too quickly into fights he may not be ready for. But also they don't want to undermatch him as well, because there's a certain level he's above already in terms of being a pro fighter at 147. First round knockout. Looked very impressive.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Shakram GIYASOV. He's 17-0 with 10 inside the distance. Also a welterweight. He's being trained by Rashab Butayev, who, as far as I remember, was a world title contender up till not too long ago, actually losing a very good fight to EIMANTAS Stanionis, who's in the main event for that WBA title at the interim stage. Now, GIYASOV was in line to fight Stanionis for that WBA title, but with a little bit of wheeling and dealing, and no doubt some step-aside money, he forfeited his opportunity, but got a slot on the boardwalk card nonetheless against Franco Ocampo, who looked at least 2 weight classes smaller than GIYASOV. A left hook in the first round had Franco in all sorts of issues, and after that, it just became a matter of time, and a right to the body finished it in the 4th. The opponent weren't up to much, in all truth, and the little study I've done on GIYASOV, maybe the bigger the challenge, the better we'll see him perform, but I'm not totally sold. He was very emotional after his 2-year-old daughter passed away from illness. They were traveling all around the place trying to find her a cure for her ailment, and he could actually be a hindrance if Boots wants to unify belts, obviously, because he's already forfeited 1 shot to let the unification go ahead, and he could be in the way if Boots is trying to negotiate fights with Brian Norman Jr. and Mario Barrios.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
Eddie's got big plans at 1:30 when Eduardo Sugar Boy Nunes travels to Japan in June to take on Mansouri Rishiki for the vacant IBF 130 title. Eduardo Nunes, 27 wins, 27 inside the distance, only 1 points loss, will be an overwhelming favourite to bring that strap back to Matchroom. Now, I've took my off the ball a little. I haven't done much research on Rishiki to see what he's got to offer. But assuming Nunes wins the fight, Eddie wants to match Nunes against Ray Ford, who was on the undercard of Boots versus Stanionis last night and posted up his second shutout points victory at 1:30. His opponent, however, 22-5-1, 17 inside the distance, never been stopped. A big super featherweight told Ray that this fight doesn't go the distance, and Ray said, yeah, you're right, it doesn't go the distance. Matisse wanted to rough up Ray Ford. That's what he came out there to do. But he underestimated Ray's hand speed and power a little. Ray only having 8 stoppages in 17 wins now. And when he was caught early by that right hand, Matisse retreated into his shell and never really went for it. He sporadically threw some good right hands and some stiff jabs, and at times threatened to sit down on his punches and really bang it out with Ray, but he didn't want to go there. And Ray, he boxed as he pleased on the back foot, front foot, closed down the range, landed great right hands, and hurt Matisse on a couple of occasions. The crowd started booing, and Ray reacted to the boos and started throwing flurries. I'm not sure if they were booing Ray more than they were booing Thomas Matisse, who looked like he was satisfied with surviving and getting through the 10 rounds without getting stopped. One of the drawbacks Ray Ford may have if Nunes is successful against Rishiki is perhaps he might not have the power to hold Eduardo Nunes off. Ray has respectable power though, and Nunes has to respect that. But Ray, in my opinion, was becoming a respectable banger at 126, and at 130, like I say, he has respectable pop, and it will be a very good fight if it all falls into place. Wasn't a spectacular performance by Ray, by no means, but very competent. If you look at Ray as a fighter from earlier on Matchroom cards and the development he's made, the maturity in his game, and how now he's able to stand in the pocket with anybody and feel comfortable there, I would tell anybody listening, do not sleep on Ray Ford, including Eduardo Sugar Nunes. Ray's hard to hit with clean shots. That's why he's scoring these shutouts. He's hard to hit with clean shots. He rolls shots well, good high guard, and he uses his legs well. Good performance.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
Boots raises his record to 34-0, 30 inside the distance. He's now the unified IBF and WBA welterweight champion. The Lithuanian EIMANTAS Stanionis took the first L of his career, so his record now 15-1-0, 9 inside the distance. Boots had considerable height and reach advantages, so That, along with Stanionis' inactivity, set the template for the evening. Boots didn't have to go looking for Stanionis. That's not Stanionis' game. He applies pressure. His jab, where he basically buries his chin into his chest, and with the weight of his upper body slightly crouched forward, when it lands, is a very powerful shot. And his head doesn't move when he throws it. So the trajectory is nothing to mess with. It's a very good jab. And he caught Boots with that a few times. He caught Boots with hooks also. The relentless body attack that was promised from Stanionis never manifested itself. I feel the strategy was they was going to go in there, try and catch Boots with something big and take him out early. I believe they knew that inactivity, one fight last year, the fight before that was in 2022. This was against them. No matter how hard Stanionis worked in this training camp, it was going to be very difficult to beat his active opponent, the naturally bigger opponent, the naturally harder hitting opponent, the longer the fight went on. And this proved to be the case. Boots found a home for his uppercuts early. He was doubling, trebling up, sometimes throwing 4 or 5 jabs at a time at Stanionis. Stanionis was always dangerous with them single power shots. But as Boxing Wave explained, if Boots doesn't respect your power, then he'll take chances. Now, when he steps up, let's say to 154, or perhaps even at 147, where he neglects defense and runs into the right punch, it's a different story. But so far, so good. He outslugged the slugger and outboxed him from the outside. There was some damage around Stanionis' left eye. Stanionis promised the body attack, relentless, but it was Boots who went to the body more effectively. Stanionis' jab always kept him in contention, and that short right hand, good punches from Stanionis. He was in contention until the 4th, where Boots dominated. Boots was switching from orthodox to southpaw all night, showboating. He landed an uppercut, then looked at the crowd. There was another sequence where, where he'd show out with the right hand like he was going to throw the left. And he was enjoying himself in there. He's an entertainer. Flashy combinations, exaggerated upper body movements in defense. And it was effective. It wasn't just showboating, it was effective. But the fight was going one way by this stage, after the 4th, going into the 5th. I believe it was at the end of the 3rd, where Bozy, Boots' old man, told him to bring your left hand back up after you throw your jab, because you're getting caught. And the 5th round, Stanionis was actually having his best spell of the fight. Landing that jab, landing that short right hand. Boots always seemed to know that if Stanionis was going to throw punches, he was going to get opportunities though. And then Boots caught Stanionis with them uppercuts and his nose started bleeding. Then them left hooks went into the body. The right hooks went into the other side of the body, and Stanionis was in all types of ish in a round he was winning. And he finished the round under fire with Boots teeing off. Stanionis only had the high guard to defend himself. He had nothing else. And he was a sitting duck. He shot his load, he went for it, and it never came off. In the 6th, that left hook to the body, followed up by that right uppercut to the head, put him down. They didn't let him out for the 7th. Some say he should have kept going. They knew at that stage there, he was done. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't understand the argument that we need to see more bravery. And you're probably right. Stanionis' cornermen and his trainer, they know the circumstances of his inactivity. They know how hard Boots punches. They've never seen Stanionis like this since they've been with him, getting a beating like that. Stanionis' wife is in labour, ready to pop the sprog out any time now. They weren't going to let him get his ass whooped any further. It was merciful. I was shocked he didn't come out for the 7th. I was shocked. But some of the machismo has been knocked out of boxing. A lot of that is due to the litigious ambulance chasing culture we have nowadays. If something were to go wrong, there'd be a lot of finger pointing, and one of the first places the fingers will be pointed is at the cornerman. They're fully aware of this. Eddie Hearn was talking of Boots Ennis as a pound for pound top 10 fighter. Is he there yet? Can't be far off. He's banging the door. Let's just say that. He's banging the door. I haven't looked at the positions and who he'd have to displace to get in the top 10. I haven't went over that. But that's 3 world title fights. You're getting knockdowns, slugfests, combination punching. Someone said in my comment section, they're talking about Boots gets hit. So does Virgil Ortiz. He arguably got beat last year. Got sat on his ass a couple of times in the Boychuk fight. Boots ain't the only one who gets hit, people. He's not the only one. Stanionis, career highest payday. I don't know what that was, but it was a career highest payday. He can go look after his baby and his wife who's delivering the baby. He can go do that right now. He'll probably return to the ring, but at a lot more preliminary level than this. And if he's serious about being a contender or a champion again, he'll have to be a lot more active.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.